How to Escape a Kidnapping. For Kids. By My Lost and Found. Read by My Lost and Found. This is the fourth part in a series of not-so-unfortunate kidnappings. Summary. Escaping from kidnappings is an art form. Being quirkless and having a villainous quirk make this art form a necessary way of life. Follow Izuku and Hitoshi as they learn the necessary skills over the years. Chapter 1. Lesson 1. Words. Summary. While escaping the good old-fashioned way is always a good option, sometimes talking is enough to get an amateur to let you go. Whether you can make them feel guilty, sorry for you, or just annoy them too much. If you can manage it, it makes the process smoother. Hitoshi is, once again, wandering the streets on a Sunday evening. The reason this time? His foster parents forgot to feed him all weekend. And of course, he wasn't allowed to go into the kitchen to make himself something. Nope, he'd been left to starve. It's not like it was too out of the ordinary for them to withhold food, but that was usually just a meal here or there, not 2 days. The headache he'd developed on Saturday had now transformed into a vague fog that settled over his mind. One that would no doubt lead to bad decisions. Oh goody, here comes one now. "Hey, kid," said a middle-aged looking man. He was a little sweaty, and his eyes were constantly shifting back and forth, looking around the park Hitoshi had found himself in. There were a few kids playing on the playground, but he just so happened to be the only one in a more secluded section. Lucky him. He didn't know why this guy was approaching 8-year-olds in a park, but it probably wasn't anything Hitoshi was interested in. He was about to ignore the weird guy and carry on before he heard the next words. "Do you want a cookie?" Hitoshi freezes in his tracks. The man seemed to gain a little confidence. "Yeah, I've taken up baking and have a bunch of extra baked goods, so I thought I'd give them out to good boys and girls. You look like a good boy, so do you want a cookie?" Okay, Hitoshi was pretty sure this guy was a kidnapper. It wasn't exactly textbook don't take candy from strangers, as baked goods definitely fell into their own category, but it was still blatantly obvious paired with his demure demeanor. But at this point, Hitoshi didn't give a shit. If this guy had food, he would gladly get in the back of his white van. It'd been a few weeks since his last kidnapping, and this man looked harmless enough. Not in the putting on a harmless act, but the probably trying to ransom him off to pay for his kid's chemo kind of harmless. He wouldn't be getting a dime out of Hitoshi's fosters, but that was neither here nor there. Hitoshi was just in it for the cookies. So he looks at the man and says, "Sure." The man perked up ever so slightly, and after one more glance at the group of parents sitting on a bench, he ushers Hitoshi away from the park. "I've got so many cookies, I couldn't carry them all, so I left them in my van. Follow me, and you can have as many as you'd like." Hitoshi nods politely as the man rambles. It reminds him of Izuku. He wonders if he'll run into him on this, probably a kidnapping, cookie trip. It's doubtful, considering he's pretty sure that the greenette has a loving mom, so he has no need to get kidnapped just to eat. The pair leave the park through a little side entrance overgrown with vines, one that opened into an empty dirt parking lot. Well, empty except for the lone white van. Really on brand. Nice job, Cookie Guy. Well, it was more of a family-style van. Was he right about the cancer ransom? With the back windows covered with black construction paper. "They're in the back. I'm sure you can manage the trunk yourself." Opening the door excitedly, expecting to see some baked cookies, Hitoshi is disappointed to be met with an empty van. Maybe he has the cookies up front? He's turning around to ask when he feels a hard shove and tumbles into the van. Oh wow, what a surprise. He's been kidnapped. He settles himself on the floor, looking around. Even though he kind of volunteered for this, he still needs to make sure that he was prepared if he needed to get out. There wasn't too much space back here, just a little nook meant for transporting groceries and such. He stood up to find himself semi-barred in by the headrests on the back seats. He's small enough that he could squeeze between them if he wanted to, but for now, he's fine back here. So Hitoshi lays his arms lazily on the worn leather between the headrests. The man scrambles into the driver's seat and whips out of the parking lot, flinging Hitoshi into the side slightly. Recentering himself, he slouches his head on his hands. "So, where are the cookies?" Hitoshi asks nonchalantly. The man looks back at him in shock, before training his eyes back on the road. "Kid, I don't have any cookies. I'm kidnapping you." Hitoshi let out an aghast gasp, glaring at the man. "You said you had cookies." "I'm a kidnapper, not a saint. I lied." "Oh, really, Your Holiness? I couldn't tell." Hitoshi deadpans. "But seriously, I'm hungry, and if I don't get something to eat, I'll start yelling." The man looked around nervously. "No one will hear you," he attempted. Hitoshi scoffed. "I don't care about that. I just mean I will scream until fed. Like a cat. So feed me." Had it been a stupid idea to get kidnapped on purpose? Yes. Was it an even stupider idea to pester his kidnapper into buying him food? Logically, yes, but when the man let out a loud, defeated sigh after Hitoshi's second minute of screeching, he knew he had won. "Fine! I will buy you McDonald's if that will shut you up." Hitoshi snapped his mouth shut, grinning his Cheshire grin as he scrambled to the back seat. "That sounds great," he chirped. Honestly, he was so hungry, the man could have given him stale bread and he would have been thankful. The fact that Cookie Man was offering McDonald's was just a bonus. Maybe he should get kidnapped by normies more often. He'd reevaluate when his braid wasn't glazed over in hunger. Before he knew it, they were pulled up to a McDonald's drive-thru. The man turned back to Hitoshi. "So what do you want?" he said before shaking himself, seemingly remembering that this wasn't some family outing and was, in fact, a kidnapping. "Hey, when did you get out of the trunk?" Hitoshi shrugged. If the man was that oblivious, he didn't deserve an explanation. "Can I have a Happy Meal?" Hitoshi ventured. He'd never actually had one before, but the kids at school raved about them all the time. "Whatever," Cookie Man said. Or was he McDonald's man now? "Just act normal." You know, this would have been a really good plan if he wanted to escape. But he did not. He was here for the food. It only took a few minutes before that little red box was sitting on his lap. Minutes that were no doubt bone-rattlingly stressful for the guy who kept looking back at Hitoshi, as if to check he hadn't suddenly been replaced by a cop about to arrest him. Not that Hitoshi cared. All his focus was centered on the enticing smell wafting up from his prize. He absolutely devoured that thing. No time for ketchup, because the fries were gone before they turned into the little suburban neighborhood. They were absolutely heavenly. And Hitoshi couldn't tell if that was just from how hungry he was, or if they were actually just that good. He gobbled down the nuggies and apple slices even faster. So all he was left with by the time the car pulled up to a regular-looking house was a little plastic toy. He didn't recognize who the hero was, but he held the figure reverently. Hitoshi startled slightly when the van door slid open. "Come on, kid. In the house. Now." The man was probably trying to be intimidating, but Hitoshi had seen worse from the old lady down the street. Still, he hopped out without a fuss, toy in hand. But before they entered the back door, yes, very not suspicious cookie guy, 10 out of 10 kidnapping. Hitoshi stopped and asked him a question. "Is this for ransom?" The man startled before hissing out a whisper. "Yes, so now get in the house so I can call your parents." Hitoshi looked the man dead in his cobalt blue eyes before letting out a tired laugh. "What's so funny?" the man snapped, clearly stressed out to be conversating with his kidnapping victim on his back porch in broad daylight. "Dude, you found me wandering alone in a park, clearly not by any of the adults." He snickered. "I don't have parents. I'm an orphan, and my fosters sure wouldn't pay to get me back. Hell, they'd pay you to keep me." When Hitoshi looked back at the man's face, he just looked so exhausted and defeated. "Just go," he said in a blank voice. This was a bad idea. Hitoshi smiles softly. Better luck next time. Oh, and thanks for the food. He calls as he jogs away, before the man can change his mind. Not that he thinks he's going to, but Hitoshi wants to be back before dark and can't afford to fool around anymore. So little 8-year-old Hitoshi wanders off into the sunset, Happy Meal toy in hand. Sometimes using your words works. Who knew? And that's the first chapter in the fourth part of this. So far, this, part has 3 chapters. It's the 4th part in the series. And, like the last part I did, it's not finished. But this one, I am most of the way through a 4th chapter for this one. But, I'm in university now, and I don't got a lot of time to write. So who knows when that will come out. But yeah, this chapter, I remember being like, wow, this is fucking sad when I finished this. I didn't want it to be sad. I wanted it to be funny, but it's like, damn, that's depressing as shit. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. And, well, I will see you next time. Bye. Want a cookie?